I was never contacted by Jackie or by any of the other staff at Rolling Stone prior to the publication of the article.
So the first news you had of your participation in this, your friendship with Jackie and this tale, was when you read it in Rolling Stone?
Yeah, that was the first I knew that it was going to be a story.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable is right. Students who were featured in Rolling Stone's thoroughly discredited report are now speaking out and saying that the magazine never even tried to contact them before publishing a piece about an alleged gang rape at the University of Virginia frat house. A scathing review by Columbia University finds that the story failed, they say, at every level, from reporting to fact-checking, and the fraternity named in the piece, Phi Kappa Psi, is reportedly planning to sue. David Webb is the radio talk show host and columnist for The Hill and a Fox News contributor. Jessica Ehrlich is a former Democratic congressional candidate and attorney. Welcome to both of you. Good to have you here today.
Good to see you,
I want to start by going backwards a little bit, because the piece of sound that you heard, those are people that were presented in the Rolling Stone piece as friends of Jackie's, who's the woman, that's not her real name, but that's the name that's used for the woman in this piece, and people that she turned to after this alleged rape happened. They are not two young men who were accused of mistreating her in any way. They were friends that she turned to. But they say they were never even called to check out the story either, which is preposterous, David, that, you know, you could have people who she says, oh, these are my friends, these are the people I turned to. They didn't even bother to call them.
Yeah, I mean, Martha, the level of journalistic malfeasance here is unbelievable. And I, for one, don't buy this commissioned report with the Columbia School of Journalism. This is really a way to deflect from the failures at Rolling Stone. There were failures by the author, failures by the editors, failure by the editor-in-chief. They ignored Journalism 101, and they did real harm to the school's reputation, the fraternity's reputation, to the students, and even in some part to her friends that she turned to. So by not verifying, what they did was they took a level of what should have been done at a very basic level and ignored it, and there should be real accountability, not a commission report and, you know, will
yeah, but
not
there isn't,
fire
David,
anyone.
because, you know, it's pretty shocking, because Rolling Stone says, well, Jackie was, quote, a really expert, fabulous storyteller. So it's not that they didn't do their job. It's just that she was such a good storyteller that you couldn't help but believe her, according to them, which is simply not the way that you report on a story, as I think everybody pretty much knows. And they go on to say, this is the managing editor at Rolling Stone, Will Dana. He says, we were too accommodating to Jackie because she was a rape victim. In other words, they didn't want to check out her story too deeply because they didn't want to, you know, poke at the story and talk to people that might be too sensitive, Jessica.
Well, I think that's also actually a deflection in terms of them taking responsibility. And I think what we're seeing here overall, which is actually what the Columbia report was about, was sort of this lack of actual, as you said, journalism ethics and basic, you know, fact-checking that's going on in general. I think not just in print media. I think the print media, like Rolling Stone, is trying to be hip. They're trying to sell magazines, and they're trying to keep up with the blogs and the internet and everything else. And in doing so, with this immediate rush to print and trying to get information out, they're failing to do their due diligence that we know is the basis of journalism.
But,
so it's really sort of a
they were
heart-wrenching
looking
thing
for
to
this
see.
story. The early part of this story is that the reporter, Sabrina Erdley, who says that this whole thing's been a brutal and humbling experience for her, she says at this point. She's having a very hard time dealing with, you know, all of the backlash on this. But she was looking for this story. She was going to different universities. Did anybody want to talk? Now, this is not to say that these kinds of incidents, maybe not this kind that was described here, but incidents absolutely are happening at universities across this country. And I do believe that this story did that a disservice. But why would nobody be fired in this situation, David? How can they expect to have any credibility as an institution if they're not willing to hold anyone accountable?
Well, they shouldn't, and they can't. And something Jessica just said about rush, this wasn't an overnight story where there was a rush to get it in for tomorrow morning's print. This was a story which took time to write. They had time to review. They had time to verify. And there has been no accountability. I'm going to go along with our colleague, Judge Andrew Napolitano, who said that even though this is a difficult legal case, he hopes that some judge, and so do I, gives the fraternity standing, gives the boys standing, lets them take on both Rolling Stone, and even though the university is indemnified, in some way the fraternity has to work with the university. There has to be some real accountability here. This damages our profession. It's an insult to real journalists who do the work of fact-checking.
But you know, you bring up an interesting point, because the fraternity, Phi Kappa Psi, has also had problems at Brown University as well, and you know, it may have been to some extent a bit of a pile-on for them. But why can't they, Jessica? You're an attorney. Why can't they sue? There's also a small group claim, because they could basically say, we're a small group and we've been maligned, almost as an individual would be maligned, because our group will suffer for it. People might not want to join. We have a bad reputation across the country because people have heard about this incident, which was false in this case.
Well, there's, you know, a difficulty within the law also that makes it very difficult. We see this even with, you know, celebrities who are willing to spend tons of money. I mean, you have to prove that there was real malintent here, that this, you know, journalist went out specifically with the intent that was malicious to go after this group. And, you know, that's a very high bar to be able to prove in court, and very difficult. So these cases really, I mean, we have a different system here in the U.S. than they do, say, with some of the laws that are in the U.K. as to how you can go about defamation and libel suits. And it really is a very high bar. And it makes it, not only is it really expensive to bring these cases and get them through, but, you know, it ends up where a lot of them settle in different things, whether, even though, you know, the point is we'd like to have some protection of privacy or things like that. So it's really, it's a very sticky wicket here for a lot of people.
The Department of Education has about 100 different cases at different universities that they're investigating, and we're going to look into that more as well here. But Jessica, thank you. David, Webb, thanks to you as well. Good to have you both here today.